The network of Koch brothers linked fundraising groups has apparently begun to shift its focus away from running ads either for certain presidential nominee possibilities or against them, namely Trump, to what they see as more fertile ground, which would be the senatorial races. The Guardian reports that many Koch donors have been advised to ignore the cult of the presidency and think long-term by focusing instead on states where Koch-backed groups have recently scored victories over Labor and Green groups, according to a private letter. We've got a small sample of that letter to give you an idea of what they've been told to do. With the eyes of the nation fixated on he said, she said character attacks and the race for delegates, in quotation marks, the prospects for a freer, more prosperous future can seem bleak. It's understandable that many Americans succumb to the cult, putting all their eggs in the basket of one person as the way to solve underlying cultural and economic challenges facing our nation. Then, after rising to power, they failed to deliver on even their most basic promises, namely reining in a government spending spree. And so coming out of this, and this was back in March, three leading groups, Americans for Prosperity, Freedom Partners Chamber of Commerce, and Concerned Veterans for America, supported by the Koch donor network, spent almost $4 million on ads in just the last month to boost Republican Senate candidates facing tough races in Nevada, Ohio, and Wisconsin. First of all, particularly in Wisconsin, Americans for Prosperity, the Koch network's political flagship group, spent $1 million to back the Republican Senator Ron Johnson in his battle against Russ Feingold. And the Koch-backed Concerned Veterans for America spent about $700,000 in Nevada last month to boost Representative Joe Heck, who's seeking to replace the retiring Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid. That's just a little sampling, but big money already being thrown around in a place where they think that they will get more for their money.
The Kochs have been doing this for a while now. They changed their strategy, and we associate them with, and they come to light with big presidential elections and the like, but they've really gone granular over the last few years in terms of what they're doing. So they're looking at affecting policy in these states and even in municipalities. I mean, there is Koch money down to like the dog catcher level, and this is just another sign of it, I think.
Yeah, so I think this is actually super smart on their part, which is not surprising. They're very smart guys. They didn't secretly take over the country by being dumb, right? and so on a couple of fronts. One, the obvious part is they don't like any of these Republican candidates right now. Charles Koch has been pushing Paul Ryan in a contested convention scenario. They just don't. Trump is uncontrollable. The whole point of Koch brother money is I give you the money and then I control you, right? Scott Walker, very controllable in Wisconsin, for example. Every Republican out of Wisconsin, Paul Ryan, Scott Walker, enormously controllable. They pulled the strings on those guys.
Remember the fake phone call to Paul Walker, to Scott Walker?
That's right. And then where he was like, yes, Mr. Koch, yes, absolutely, sir. Whose Union skull should I crush?
It was the radio host?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And then I might have paraphrased a little bit there. Okay. And so Trump, for all of his, insanity, his only upside is that he's not a puppet, right? So the Koch brothers can't, control him like they normally do. So they're not interested in that. They've had some issues with Cruz. So, and plus now we find out that they might actually want Paul Ryan to run in the contested convention scenario. Hence, they want to save their money for the general election, right? And even so, let them battle it out. If I don't like those two guys, and if I want to spend money in the general election, I will later. Why would I spend it in a primary with two guys I don't like, right? So, and that won't take my orders, which is the whole goddamn point of this thing, right?
Yeah.
But more importantly, and I think even smarter, is they realize the same thing that we realize here at the Young Turks, which is, and what I've been talking about for a long time here, which is everybody gets confused, like, oh, money in politics, but then they couldn't beat Obama, Koch brothers, right? And what they realize is, oh, right. Well, in a presidential election, as I've been saying over and over again, there is billions of dollars in free media. It's so much harder to buy a presidential election because you're going to get free press. You're on air all the time. All your speeches are covered. There's debates. There's town halls. It's endless. So it's very hard to buy a presidential election. But if you take your $889 million, you can buy an awful lot of congressmen and senators with that money. And then you have the Congress and you go to Obama and go, well, what are you going to do? Not a goddamn thing, because I just gridlocked the hell out of this. And as the Koch brothers, what do I want? I want government in action. I want to make sure you can't raise my taxes. I want to make sure you can't regulate me. I do the gridlock in Congress, and you're done, so I win anyway.
Yeah, the thing they got to fear most right now, or among the things they have to fear seriously right now, is this sort of, and I love it right now when Obama is doing it, you know, and the stuff that he did this week with executive action was great and impressive and overdue, but
The corporate inversion.
Great that he's doing it now. What they have to fear is that, again, we've opened up like, oh, great, we'll just do this as a president who's more liberal than Obama or more willing to be liberal earlier, who'll just do it, you know, and so therefore, because that goes against what they had, this plan of which Cenk enumerated, which is gridlock, which is the status quo stays because we can't get anything done.
And that plan, it's had some hiccups along the past few years because Obama can order whatever he wants with an executive order. It then inevitably gets litigated. It goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, for whatever other bias it has, is incredibly pro-corporate.
And who funds those lawsuits?
Exactly. Right. But theoretically, if we get the right Supreme Court nominee, under whoever it is on the Democratic side that becomes the next president, you then flip it over to hopefully, look, even the liberals on the court tend to be more pro-corporate than we'd like, but they're not the right. And so if he has 5, whoever it is, if it's Bernie or if it's Hillary, then they don't have to worry about it being turned over a year or 2 after they make the executive order.
That's right. Yeah. So, but anyway,
not nearly as often in any event.
But you know, and it just and I end up reading these stories, and I get so irritated at everybody who's led the DNC, except maybe Howard Dean when he was head of the DNC. Because I mean, the degree to which Democrats, liberals, progressive, all of them together, have abdicated responsibility, not just on congressional seats. I get it, but those got redistricted by Congress, and the inability to fight in state after state after state. We're getting crushed in state legislatures and governorships. I mean, that's actually where Democrats ought to be doing better, because we know, well, look, if everybody in the country voted, as we've said a zillion times, the country would be far more left policy-wise than it is now. So we allow these significant Koch-backed right-wingers to take seats in legislature after legislature and let ALEC dictate those laws that they pass, and then act surprised when we end up with gridlock and with completely uncompetitive congressional races, which is now at least maybe going to raise some awareness among so many Bernie supporters who will eventually, if he were to win, face the realization that, wow, at least, okay, getting control of Congress at a bare minimum is going to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah. And Congress is so important, you know, really that, you know, and I know you guys talk about this a lot on the Turks, or at least to check off to it, but, you know, the idea that we could lose the presidency and then you've lost all of government essentially, right? There's no stopping. You have no control, the Supreme Court nominee, you have no control of Congress, and now you have no control of the executive branch. That's why this election is so very important. But that congressional step, that second tier, is critical, and the Kochs have identified that, and they realize, hey, if we get a stranglehold on this, we've really got a big piece of power.
And the state legislatures as well.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So that's more critical than anything.
Crazy.
And exactly. And as I said before, they're playing it all the way down. I mean, I think to the municipality level.
So let me add one quick thing here. This is what Ben is referring to is what I am going to start calling today the Barney Frank rule. So our reporter, Jordan Chariton, talked to Barney Frank, interviewed him at one of these. He's supporting Hillary Clinton, and he was defending her for taking banking money. He said, I took banking money, and I took banking money for the Democrats. What do you want us to do? Have the banking money go, instead of going 80% to the Republicans, have it go 100% to the Republicans? And so, but what he doesn't realize in that is that, well, you've now set up a system where, by definition, they're getting 4 times as much funding as you are, and you have agreed to this system of funding. Well, then you are going to be a perpetual loser in that system. You've set up a game you cannot win. So no, I'm not proud of you for taking 20% of the banking money. They're paying you to lose, and you don't even get it, right? So that's the system that the Koch brothers love.